I love him. He is my favorite Britisher, and he is the king of the Midas Touch Network. I know he's not really the king, and he hasn't, but I give him that title. He of the 5-Minute News. How about it for the great Anthony Davis, everyone? God damn it, stand up. God damn it, stand up for Anthony Davis. All right. Thank you. Sorry, Anthony. There are a few people who are slow to get to their feet.
It's fine.
To be fair, they're senior citizens, so it's a little harder for them to rise quickly. How's the 5-Minute News going, first of all? I wanted to ask you about that before we get into everything going on in America.
It's a very good question. It has actually blown up in the last 2 weeks to a point that I can't really believe it. So I'm now putting out, because obviously we're in this last few months up to the election day. What is it, like 109 days or something now?
Yeah.
So I'm putting out an explainer video every day of strategy and thoughts, and people seem to be very receptive to it. I was a little shy at first to kind of show my face and my opinion, but now I've kind of found the confidence, courtesy of YouTube comments and people writing to me. It's made it a lot easier. I'm not a natural in front of the camera. I like to hide behind the microphone normally, and so it's very heartwarming to know that, as you have here with your show, that there are people who are actually waiting to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, it's a terrific community that you discover. That's at least been my discovery. Well, I'm a big fan, and I'm just loving your work, and so glad that you can spend a couple of minutes with us regularly. And so now I want to ask you about what's happening. First, before I get to the RNC, and as I was mentioning prior to you coming on, I was talking about J.D. Vance, and you can talk about Trump and Vance and that entire plan they have and strategy they have. I think they're feeling very good about their chances of winning. That's one of the reasons that Vance ended up on the ticket to begin with. I mean, Trump clearly feels as though he doesn't need to put anybody on the ticket to win a state or to gain any kind of political. So we'll get to that in a second. But I want to talk about the crisis that's affecting the Democrats right now. Speak to what's going on with Biden.
Well, this morning we've heard that he is now at least open to talking about the idea of stepping aside, and he's been asking for Kamala Harris's polling numbers. Well, that is a huge shift, because last week he was like, leave me alone. Maybe getting COVID changed him. And he was like, I'm done with this, because, I had COVID for 10 days recently and I couldn't move. So, I think it would be funny if COVID would be the thing that stops Biden from being on the ticket. But I have a strategy for them, which I'm not going to say on your show, because I only just made a video about it 10 minutes ago, and I just put it on the 5-Minute News channel.
Okay.
So I'd love people to go see it there. But my position is this. I think that he needs to stay where he is. I think that the thing that people are missing is that independents and fiscal conservatives and traditional conservatives will vote for Joe Biden. They will vote for him because he's an old white guy and he's seen as a moderate and not as a progressive. And those votes are essential to win this election. You don't want those people who are never Trumpers, who don't want to vote for Donald Trump, voting for third party or not at all. You got to get the votes, because as we know, the Electoral College is rigged, and we just need everybody to kind of come out on polling day and do their citizen duty.
This is interesting. Josh is saying, sorry to interrupt, but he's saying he's been bullied, Biden has been, by the corporate media. Do you agree with that?
That's actually what I said in this video, yeah. I was like, the corporate media, isn't it funny how people, especially Republicans, have always criticized the media as being liberal and being run by liberals? But actually now, especially with the change in ownership of CNN and other publications, that most of the media now is pretty much in Republican ownership. And so, they don't want Biden to win. All of the coverage of Biden has been negative, despite the fact the country's doing really well. Wall Street had its best week last week. Inflation is coming down. Jobs numbers are great. It doesn't make any sense. And so there is a targeted campaign to make Joe Biden look like he is too old and too decrepit. And the reality is that he had a bad night on that debate. He'd done too much international travel. They'd over-prepped him. And also he has a stutter. And I wish people would take more of an interest in the stutter, because it is the thing that holds him back. And, if you have a stutter, when you are under pressure, i.e. in a TV studio or that kind of environment, especially when you've been told, okay, you've got 1 minute and you need to tell us with the clock, and you've got Trump standing next to you who pays no attention to the mic being on or off. He just steamrolled through the whole thing, putting Biden off. What chance does an 81-year-old man have with a speech impediment under that much pressure in winning the debate? It's just not possible. You cannot debate Donald Trump. Hillary couldn't do it. It is an impossible task.
But let me just push back a little bit and say, well, he did do it, actually. The last time he ran against Trump, he did it, and he did it much more effectively. He did seem, Anthony, you must concede, to have checked out. He seemed lost. He did seem, it was more than just a stutter. Come on. He really, sadly, did display some sort of diminishment of his mental acuity.
Well, he's 4 years older. And the thing is, as you get older, those years can be unkind. So, I agree with that. But, he, the next day, did a rally with more energy and more strength than I've ever seen. And since he's done 25 public events that the media refuses to cover, Donald Trump's just either been golfing or playing shoot my ear. So it's a very kind of two very different candidates. Trump's in it for himself. Biden's a public servant. Which one do you want? Dictatorship or democracy? It doesn't really matter who the candidate is. I mean, I've seen people saying they'll vote for Joe Biden even if he's lying in a box.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've said on this show many times. I'll take him on a hospital gurney before I vote for Trump, of course. But I wonder, I mean, you can apply that logic to him stepping back and putting Kamala Harris top of ticket, or whomever, because, as you say, there's such a strong no vote. But I feel the Democrats are in hanging on to Biden, and it may be that Biden could prevail, although all the current polling would suggest otherwise. But the idea somehow that Trump will drown himself because of his negatives, because of who he is, because of the toxicity of taking away women's reproductive rights, because there is just so much wrong with everything from a policy standpoint that Trump speaks to and that J.D. Vance would speak to. I don't know if he's going to drown himself. It looks as though the only thing I would say, and then I'll shut up, is that his ceiling seems real, the Trump ceiling. I mean, I know his base is super real, but also his ceiling seems real. Like he can't really punch through. Biden's feels like it might also be real. I don't know, but I'm just saying, I think there's a limit to how much altitude the Trump ticket can get.
I would agree. And I present an alternative but similar argument, and that is that Donald Trump is not popular. He is not a popular candidate. He is popular with a cult base who buy the merchandise, and because they're all wearing red hats and now little bandages on their right ears, they look like there is more energy. It feels like there's more energy. And the timing of the RNC coming 2 days after an attempted assassination puts Donald Trump on the front pages of all the newspapers, then the announcement of J.D. Vance, of course. So suddenly it's like, well, it's all Trump, 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 Trump. Everyone's talking about Trump. But it's temporary, Donald Trump is divisive. He's the kind of person who I think is being legitimized by the media because they have a vested interest. But when it comes to voters, and you really have to trust the American people to have instinct for what is the right thing to do, his cards are on the table about being a dictator and an autocrat. Finally, people are talking about Project 2025 in detail. They recognize, especially after the immunity case being ratified in the Supreme Court, giving Trump immunity? Are you kidding me? Then the classified documents case being thrown out by Judge Yeilling Cannon. These things are examples of what a Donald Trump presidency will look like, where there is he's a despot. And everybody around him, both in the judiciary, in Congress, they'll all be sycophants. And I don't think that the American people want that. And so with that in mind, I think Donald Trump's narcissism has tricked him into thinking that he is as popular as he is wherever he goes. Because, of course, wherever he goes, they always make sure there's people there. They pay them. They bring in, like 3 black Republicans and stand them there in Chick-fil-A. It's terrible. The reality is Trump is not popular.
By the way, that's not a joke. There are black Republicans who are paid by the Trump people to show up at different events. So that might have sounded like sort of a glancing, cheeky remark.
No, the woman in Chick-fil-A turned out to be she's an organizer for the Republican National Committee. And she brought all of her friends in as well. And then he's like, I'm buying milkshakes for everyone. And he bought like 6 milkshakes and there was like 50 people. And I just was like, this is... we exposed it. On Midas Touch, we kind of found who this woman was, and we're like, this is where she's been working, and she appeared at another of his things last week as well. So, it's a confidence trick, Mark. The whole Donald Trump movement is a confidence trick. The media are falling for it. Sadly, a lot of the public, the public are falling for it. Adam Schiff is falling for it. I just don't think people understand that the base, the Republican base, is not all Republicans. It's what, 30%, 40% of Republicans love Trump and think Trump's great? The rest are embarrassed about him. Yeah,
it's that's an interesting perspective. It's funny. I first of all, a couple of things. Chad says he just subscribed to the 5-Minute News last night, so congratulations on that, another subscriber. Damn it, that was not a speech impediment. He didn't stutter when he was conquering Medicare or when he was proclaiming the virtues of VP Trump. That was all very clear. He looked lost, says Luis. This is what we were talking about on the debate stage. It's,
But two things can be correct, right? It's not one thing. It's his stutter. It's his age, or it can be multiple things. He's human. He's fallible. Why do people think that a president can't fall off his bike? Everybody falls off their bike. Yet when Joe Biden does it, there's something wrong with him. Yeah, he fell off his bike. At least he gets on a bike. Trump can't get on a bike. Yeah. So,
but you can't fall off your bike on a debate stage the way he fell off his bike that night.
And he admits that. And he says, I had a really bad night. He said, I screwed up. It's my fault. And the guy was exhausted, and I think, resting him look, Trump's resting all the time, doesn't do anything,
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean,
still doesn't
I always
make any
talk about
sense.
He's on the golf course or in a bathrobe. But here's something from Cindy. She says there was an internal polling leak that shows a 15-point lead by Trump. I didn't see a 15-point lead. The most I saw was 8 points. But nonetheless, Anthony Davis, have you seen anything that would suggest that there is a serious edge that Trump has, such that they may want to recalibrate what they do just from a strategic standpoint on the Democratic side?
No, because the polls, I don't buy the polls. I've got a lot into how the polls are created, and we know it's like landlines with older people, and a lot of people just don't respond to polls, and so a lot of the polling companies are in the pockets of the Republican Party as well. So I'm not really interested in polls. Mine is more of a sense of the national conversation, the feeling. I don't think that you can't pretend that Joe Biden is Superman. He isn't, but he's a good person who has demonstrated that he can do the job because he is the president now, and the country's doing really well. So it doesn't make sense to me that people are like, he can't do it, and I'm like, he's doing it now. So that's the proof. And that's the difference between these two candidates. One is capable of being the president despite being old because he delegates, he has a good vice president, he has an amazing cabinet of young, diverse, energized people, and so he is the delegator. The dictator, in contrast, doesn't let anyone do anything. It's Trump's way or the highway. Well, that's authoritarianism.
Here's one from PT. There is a prejudice against stutterers and old people. Trump has screwed up just as much, and he tells lie after lie, and the press mostly gives him a pass.
Yes.
That's essentially what you're saying.
Well, Biden did push back in Lester Holt's interview on NBC and said, why are you asking me about the debate? I had a bad night. Why have you not mentioned that Donald Trump lied 28 times? And Lester Holt couldn't answer him. because, those legacy media networks, tragically, are all batting for Donald Trump. The idea that democracy could fall in America doesn't seem to be of interest to them. It's so short-sighted.
The word from Lori, unfortunately, just as Dems will vote for Biden administration, people hating Biden policies are voting for Trump administration and not Trump the man. They can dislike and vote for the purported policies. This is where I think there's some truth to these wedge issues that are cultural. Anthony, I mean, they get a lot of air on trans rights and these latest, the latest law in California where, essentially a trans youth can express the questions around sexuality and around sexual identity and not have to ever have the school tell the parents that they make hay of these kinds of cultural issues.
I think that the cultural stuff, as in, is America a racist country, which is a big part of this, right? Putting Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. Are people going to vote, A, for a woman of color, but B, a female? And when I've talked about this, people are like, oh, no, I don't think America's ready for a female president. I'm like, wow, we did it in the UK in 1979, done it twice since, having female leaders. Germany had its most successful period with a female leader. Look at New Zealand. Look at these countries that have trailblazed with women in charge. So yes, it's totally the right time for a female leader, but you do have to consider the cultural issues, which is America ready for a black person and a female person? I just can't believe we're having to have this conversation in 2024.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's incredible. But this country is, and this has been something that I keep coming back around to. I think that the country is deeply racist with it's baked into the culture. And there is a misogyny. I mean, simply look at the Supreme Court decision. They've reversed Roe, the celebration of taking away women's reproductive freedoms. It's despicable. It's absolutely despicable. And as you say, in 2024, we're doing this? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we're devolving while the rest of the world is evolving. So I then would put the question out, can Kamala Harris, if this train that seems to have achieved sort of what is that? The tipping point speed. If this train to essentially railroad Biden out and Kamala in, if that's successful, can Kamala win? For all the reasons that you just mentioned, which is, people are afraid of the fascism that's rising. They want to embrace the competence of the Democrats, whatever it might be. Might that carry with Kamala or not?
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you what I said in my video because I can't really answer your question without giving it away.
People will still go to your videos.
I know they will. It's
okay.
Fine. It's just I was so excited about it when I made it this morning, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great." My suggestion.
Hold on a second. Take that banner off with the www.youtube. Just say 5-minute news on YouTube. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No one's copying the URL.
This is my suggestion for strategy. So currently we have a Biden-Harris ticket, and what I'm suggesting is a Harris-Biden ticket.
Oh, that's interesting.
No one's thought of it.
Yeah.
No one's thought of it because then you keep Joe Biden. You keep him. So the people that the Republicans who want Biden, they still get their Biden because they trust him. He's, an elder statesman. He's been around a long time. They know that he's a safe pair of hands. And then we get to smash the glass ceiling by having a female president and a president of color. And, I think it could be as exciting as it was when Hillary Clinton was about to win the election and James Comey made a speech about her email investigation. And scuppered that concept. But do you remember how exciting it was for the whole country? Women and girls getting a sense that for the first time, females would be represented at the very top of government. It was a very great feeling that got scuppered by a snake oil salesman from Queens.
Right. Very well put. Many agree with you in the chat. It's also suggested that, there seems to be an inherent weakness with the very short time that Kamala Harris was in the race against Joe Biden. People point to Iowa, and people point to just her
I don't think that
bad
matters.
polling numbers.
The thing is, if she was at the top of the ticket, it takes the pressure off him for these environments that he's not natural in, like the TV studio with the time clock and the pressure and all of that stuff. But it means that he is still there as part of this duo, this dynamic duo. And I genuinely think that if it's a Harris-Biden ticket, they can smash it. If it's a Biden-Harris ticket, then they'll still win, in my view, because I think that all the excitement about Donald Trump is temporary because of obviously the drama of the assassination, but in reality, he is not popular.
I would say this, and then I want to share a comment with you that just came in because it reflects some recent polling, and it's an alternative to what we've just suggested. There's a practical consideration to vice president. If something happens to the president, the vice president is to ascend to the seat of power. The problem could come in the fact that Biden may not be, positioned to do that. I mean, he is advancing in age, it would seem, in ways that may diminish his ability to, remain in a position of authority. If he couldn't serve, I believe third in line would be Speaker of the House, right?
But not if there's an election, because if there's an election, do we not get a change of speaker?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean,
right,
you could get it. Sure.
So from that perspective, it's not a problem.
Yeah, if Democrats retain control of the House, it's not a problem.
Yeah,
right. If they don't, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Here is something, and then I'll let you go. Mark Kelly. This is from Pietro because this is interesting. Mark Kelly as VP is a very strong look. He checks every single box. And here's what I would say about that comment from Pietro. If you look at the polling, Mark Kelly actually polls ahead of Kamala Harris in terms of popularity. So there are alternatives. I mean, actually, if you must know, there are 3 or 4 people who poll ahead of Kamala Harris in the most recent polling.
But is it too late, Mark? That's the thing, because you have to look at the fact that there's only 100 days, and people don't like change, and I'm very aware of that kind of sense of familiarity and people that they know, and if you bring in candidates that are brand new, it might be too shocking. So you could do it with Kamala Harris at the top, and then another person, as VP. But I think that to put someone at the top of the ticket at this stage would be foolish.
Mark should be top of ticket. I think you mean Mark Kelly, right?
Yeah. He definitely means Mark Kelly.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
How dare you? How dare you? Anthony Davis, the 5-Minute News. I love everything you do there at the Midas Touch Network, and I love when you come visit us. There it is, 5-Minute News. Check it out. It's right here on our home platform of YouTube, and there's great stuff always. Come visit again, my friend, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you. I'll vote for you, Mark.
All right. Anthony Davis, everybody. Thank you. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.